The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor as my sister's laughter pierced through the ballroom like a dagger through silk. Every head in the grand hall turned toward us, toward my husband, Marcus, who stood frozen beside me with his weathered hand gripping his cane so tightly his knuckles had gone white. "Oh my God, did you all hear that?" Victoria's voice rang out, her perfect red lips twisted into a cruel smile as she pointed at Marcus's leg. "It actually creaks when he walks, like something out of a pirate movie." She threw her head back, her diamond necklace catching the light from the chandeliers above. "Tell me, Marcus, do you keep a parrot in that shabby coat too?" The room erupted. My mother's tinkling laugh joined Victoria's harsh cackle. My father smirked behind his brandy snifter. Even my younger brother James, who I'd once protected from bullies in school, was doubled over, slapping his knee. The sound of their mockery bounced off the walls of our family's estate, the place where I'd grown up, the place where I'd brought my husband tonight, hoping, foolishly, that things might be different. Marcus's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching beneath his salt and pepper beard. His storm gray eyes, usually so warm when they looked at me, had gone cold and dark as the deepest parts of the ocean. The wooden leg they mocked, carved from ancient blackwood and etched with symbols I'd never fully understood, remained planted firmly on the ground even as the rest of his body tensed like a coiled spring. "Darling," I whispered, reaching for his arm, but he remained still as stone. "No wonder you had to settle for damaged goods, Alara," my mother said, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, as if her tears of mirth were something delicate and precious. "After all, who else would want you? The family disappointment, the girl who couldn't even finish her degree, who works at that pathetic little bookshop by the docks. At least you found someone at your own level, broken and worthless." The words stung, but not as much as they once would have. I'd heard variations of them my entire life. What hurt more was watching my husband endure this, watching the man who'd shown me more kindness in 2 years than my family had in 28 years be reduced to a punchline at my sister's engagement party. "Though I must ask," Victoria continued, sauntering closer in her designer heels that cost more than I made in 3 months, "does the leg come off at night? That must make things rather awkward in the bedroom." She wrinkled her nose in disgust. "How utterly repulsive." That's when I saw it, the slight shift in Marcus's stance, the way his fingers moved to trace one particular symbol on his cane, a gesture I'd seen only once before, when we'd been cornered by thugs in an alley near the shop. That night, those men had taken one look at his face and fled as if they'd seen death itself. "You know what the funniest part is?" my father said, finally setting down his drink to join the spectacle. "Ilara actually had the audacity to ask me for a loan last month. Can you imagine? As if I'd waste money on her and her crippled husband's pathetic attempts at a life." "I heard he works at the docks," James added, eager to contribute to my humiliation. "Loading cargo or something equally menial. A dock worker with a wooden leg. It's like a bad joke that writes itself." Marcus finally moved, but not in the way they expected. He reached into his coat, that shabby coat my sister had mocked, and pulled out an old pocket watch. The room fell silent for a moment as he checked the time, his movements deliberate and calm. 11:47, he said, his voice carrying an accent I'd told my family was Scottish, but which held hints of something older, something that had traveled across every ocean and seen every port. "The tide will have turned by now." "What's he babbling about?" Victoria laughed, but there was something uncertain in it now. Marcus looked at me then, and in his eyes I saw a question. I knew what he was asking. He was giving me one last chance to stop what was about to happen. I thought about all the years of abuse, all the times they'd made me feel worthless, all the opportunities they'd stolen from me. I thought about how they'd treated the best thing that had ever happened to me. I nodded. His lips curved into a smile that was nothing like the gentle expressions I was used to. This was something else entirely, dangerous and sharp as a blade. "You want to know about my leg?" he asked, his voice dropping to a register that made everyone in the room take an involuntary step back. "Let me tell you about my leg." But before he could continue, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then they went out entirely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. In that darkness, I heard my husband laugh. Really laugh, for the first time since we'd arrived. It wasn't a pleasant sound. When the lights returned a moment later, we were no longer alone. Men and women had materialized throughout the ballroom like ghosts, each dressed in weathered leather and bearing weapons that belonged in a museum or a nightmare. They stood at every exit, every window, their faces marked with scars and stories of violence. "What is this?" my father demanded, his voice cracking. "Who are these people?" Marcus removed his coat, revealing a white shirt that did nothing to hide the numerous scars crisscrossing his arms. But more than that, it revealed the tattoos, intricate designs of ships and storms, krakens and compasses, all interconnected in a massive piece of art that told a story I was only beginning to understand. "These people," Marcus said, unbuttoning his shirt cuff and rolling up his sleeve to reveal more of the intricate tat work, "are my crew." The way he said crew made my mother's face go pale. She was the first to understand, had always been the quickest despite her cruelty. "No," she whispered. "It's not possible. You're dead. The Pirate King is dead. They hung him in Nassau 5 years ago." Marcus's smile widened. "They hung someone in Nassau 5 years ago. But King Marcus Blackwood Thorn? He's very much alive. Though I did lose my leg in that particular misunderstanding." He tapped his wooden leg against the marble floor, the sound echoing through the silent room. "Had it crafted from the mast of my first ship. The symbols carved into it. They're the names of every vessel I've taken, every captain who's bent the knee, every port that pays me tribute." My sister's face had gone from red to white to green in the span of seconds. "You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke. Alara, what have you done?" "What have I done?" I asked, finding my voice at last. "I married the most wonderful man I've ever met. The fact that he happens to be the most feared pirate in 3 centuries, that's just a bonus." "Pirate King," corrected a woman with a scar running from her ear to her chin. "Show some respect for your sister's husband." The truth was, I hadn't known who Marcus truly was when I'd married him. We'd met 2 years ago when I was at my lowest point. My family had just cut me off financially for refusing to marry the son of their business partner, a man who'd tried to assault me at a dinner party while my parents looked the other way. I'd been working at the bookshop for mere pennies, living in a room so small I could touch both walls with my arms outstretched. Marcus had come in looking for maps, old ones specifically. He'd been gentle, soft-spoken, with calloused hands that spoke of hard work and eyes that held depths I couldn't fathom. He'd come back every day for a month, buying books he probably didn't need, until finally he'd asked if I might like to have dinner with him. "I should warn you," he'd said that first night, "I'm not exactly what people expect. I've got a past that might frighten you." "We all have pasts," I'd told him. "What matters is who we choose to be now." He'd revealed the truth gradually. First, that he'd once been a sailor, then that he'd been a captain. Then, that his ship had operated outside the law. Finally, 6 months after we'd married, in a tiny ceremony with only his first mate and the bookshop owner as witnesses, he'd told me everything. King Marcus Thorn, the pirate king who'd united the scattered pirate fleets of 3 oceans under one flag. The man who'd established the pirate code that even legitimate navies had come to respect. The strategist who'd never lost a battle, who'd accumulated wealth beyond imagining, who'd disappeared 5 years ago after a betrayal that had cost him his leg and nearly his life. "But why?" I'd asked him. "Why give it all up? Why pretend to be a simple dock worker?" "I was tired," he'd said simply. "Tired of the violence, the constant vigilance, the loneliness of command. I wanted something real. Someone who would love me not for my reputation or my wealth, but for who I am beneath all that. And then I found you." We'd lived quietly these 2 years. He'd worked at the docks, not loading cargo as my brother had sneered, but as a navigation consultant for the shipping companies, though they had no idea they were receiving advice from the legendary Pirate King. I'd continued at the bookshop, and we'd been happy in our small apartment above the bakery. We might have continued that way forever if my family hadn't sent the invitation to Victoria's engagement party, with a note that made it clear my attendance was mandatory if I ever wanted to be acknowledged as family again. Marcus had seen me crying over it, torn between my desperate hope that things could be different and my knowledge that they never would be. "We'll go," he'd said. "And if they treat you the way they always have, then perhaps it's time they learned who they've been dismissing all these years." Now, standing in my childhood home surrounded by his crew, I watched my family's world crumble. This is kidnapping, my father blustered, trying to reclaim some authority. I'll call the police. Marcus laughed again. With what? Your phone stopped working the moment my crew surrounded the estate. And kidnapping? No, Lord Ashford. We're simply having a family discussion. After all, I am family now, aren't I? Though you've made it abundantly clear what you think of me. He walked, no, prowled across the room, his wooden leg making that creaking sound my sister had mocked, but which now sounded ominous in the silence. Each step was measured, purposeful, predatory. He stopped in front of the massive family portrait that dominated the north wall, a painting that had been commissioned 5 years ago. I wasn't in it, of course. I'd been edited out of the family narrative long before that. Do you know what I find interesting? Marcus asked, studying the painting. You have all this wealth, all this power, and yet you use it so poorly. You could have been kings in your own right, could have built empires of loyalty and love. Instead, you chose cruelty. You chose to torment the one member of your family who had the most to offer. Alara? Victoria scoffed, though her voice shook. She's nothing special. She's weak, pathetic. She's the only reason you're all still breathing, Marcus said quietly, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Do you have any idea how many times I've wanted to make you pay for every tear she's shed? Every night she's cried herself to sleep remembering your cruelty? The only thing that stayed my hand is her mercy, her stubborn belief that there might be some good in you worth salvaging. He turned to face them fully, and I saw my family recoil from whatever they saw in his expression. But tonight, you finally convinced me she was wrong. Marcus, I said softly, and he looked at me. They need to know everything. They need to understand what they've done. He nodded, then gestured to one of his crew members, a man with skin weathered by salt and sun. The man produced a leather-bound ledger and handed it to Marcus, who opened it and began to read. June 15th, 10 years ago. The Ashford Trading Company received a contract worth £3 million for exclusive shipping rights through the Caribbean corridor. Interesting thing about that. Those rights were granted by the previous pirate king, my predecessor, in exchange for certain considerations. My father's face went ashen. That's impossible. August 22nd, 8 years ago. A competitor's fleet was mysteriously destroyed by pirates, leaving Ashford Trading as the sole supplier for several crucial routes. The compensation you paid for that service was substantial, though you've apparently forgotten who arranged it. You're lying, my father whispered, but we all heard the uncertainty. December 3rd, 6 years ago. Your son James was taken by pirates off the coast of Tortuga. Marcus looked at my brother, who had gone very still. You paid a ransom of £500,000. Did you never wonder why he was returned unharmed? Why he had no memories of his captivity? It's because I personally ensured his safety and had my crew doctor administer something to help him forget the experience. Professional courtesy, you understand, for a family that had been so useful to us. James stared at Marcus in horror. You knew me? I knew of all of you. The Ashford family was one of our most reliable partners, though you never knew it. Your fortune wasn't built on clever trading alone. It was built on the backs of pirates who cleared your competition and protected your ships. And all we asked in return was the occasional favor and a healthy percentage. But that arrangement, my mother said slowly, her quick mind putting pieces together, that ended 5 years ago, when the Pirate King disappeared. When I disappeared, Marcus confirmed, and how quickly you forgot your benefactors. How quickly you started shortchanging the very people who had made you rich. My crew has been keeping track of every slight, every broken promise, every payment you've withheld, thinking there was no one left to enforce the old agreements. He snapped the ledger shut. By my calculation, you owe the pirate fleet approximately £18 million in missed payments, penalties, and interest. We don't have that kind of money, Victoria cried, not in liquid assets. No. Marcus tilted his head. Then I suppose we'll have to take payment in other ways. Your ships, for instance, your trading routes, your estates, your social standing, everything you've built on the foundation we provided. You can't do this, my father said, but he was sweating now, his bluster completely gone. We have lawyers, connections. You have nothing, Marcus corrected. Your lawyers work for firms that have their own arrangements with us. Your political connections value their shipping interests more than your friendship. And your social standing? Well, that's about to become very interesting. He nodded to another crew member, a young woman with bright green eyes who looked barely out of her teens but carried herself like someone much older. She produced a stack of papers and began distributing them to my family members. These are copies of every transaction, every communication, every deal you've made with pirates over the past 15 years, Marcus explained as they read with growing horror. Evidence of your complicity in what some might call piracy-adjacent activities. I imagine the authorities would be very interested in these documents. This is blackmail, my mother hissed. This is justice, Marcus countered. You've spent years tormenting Alara, making her feel worthless, less than human. You've denied her inheritance, her place in the family, basic kindness. And tonight, you had the audacity to mock not just me, but the choice she made in marrying me. So now you face a choice of your own. He walked over to me and took my hand, his touch gentle despite the power radiating from him. You can publicly acknowledge Alara as not just family, but as the head of the Ashford family. You will transfer all assets, all authority, all control to her. You will apologize, publicly and repeatedly, for your treatment of her. And you will live the rest of your lives according to her wishes, whether that's in comfort or poverty. Or, my father asked, though he clearly didn't want to know the answer. Or I resume being the Pirate King full-time, and you discover what it means to be the sworn enemies of every pirate in every ocean. Your ships will burn. Your warehouses will empty. Your friends will abandon you rather than share your fate. And eventually, when you have nothing left, you'll wish you'd chosen the first option. Victoria stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. You can't make us do this. Alara doesn't deserve... She was cut off by the sound of cannon fire in the distance. Everyone except Marcus and his crew flinched. That's a warning shot from my flagship, Marcus said calmly. The Revenge is anchored just outside the harbor with 48 guns ready to fire. One signal from me, and your entire fleet currently docked in port becomes kindling. The authorities, my father started, are currently dealing with simultaneous disturbances at 17 other locations around the city. The scarred woman interrupted. They won't be coming. I watched my family realize they were truly trapped. It was a feeling I knew well. I'd lived with it for 28 years. The helplessness, the knowledge that someone else held all the power and you were at their mercy. But unlike them with me, Marcus was offering them a choice. You have 1 hour to decide, Marcus said, checking his pocket watch again. Though I should mention that Alara's mercy is the only reason I'm giving you that long. My mother turned to me, and for the first time in my life, I saw her look at me without contempt. Alara, surely you can't want this. We're your family. Are you? I asked. Because family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Family doesn't lock a 7-year-old in a closet for spilling juice on Victoria's dress. Family doesn't tell a 13-year-old that she's too ugly to be seen at social events. Family doesn't steal a full scholarship to university and give it to their other daughter because it would look better for the family image. You knew about that, Victoria asked, her face paling. I've known about all of it, I said. Every cruel word, every stolen opportunity, every moment you made me feel like I was nothing. I lived with it because I thought I had no choice. But Marcus taught me something. We always have choices. And now, you get to make yours. James was the first to break. My younger brother, who I'd once protected and who'd repaid that protection with mockery, fell to his knees. I'm sorry, he whispered. Alara, I'm so sorry. I was weak. I was cruel because they were cruel and I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be loved the way Victoria was loved. You were loved, I told him. I loved you. I would have done anything for you. I know, he said, tears streaming down his face. I know, and I threw it away for their approval. An approval that meant nothing, built on nothing. He looked up at Marcus. I'll sign anything. Give her everything. She deserves it all. James, my mother snapped, but he shook his head. No, Mother, I'm done. I'm done being the kind of person who laughs at someone's disability. I'm done being cruel because it's expected. If Alara will have me as her brother, her real brother, Then I'll spend the rest of my life earning that place. The room fell silent except for the distant sound of the sea and the creaking of the ship in the harbor. I studied James's face, looking for deception, but found only genuine remorse. Victoria, I asked, turning to my sister, what's your choice? She looked between our parents and me, calculation clear in her eyes. Victoria had always been smart. It was one of the things that made her cruelty so effective. She knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. If I agree, she said slowly, what happens to me? That depends entirely on Alara, Marcus said. She might let you keep your engagement to Lord Pemberton. She might let you retain some portion of your jewelry, your wardrobe, some money to live on. Or she might decide you deserve exactly what you've given her over the years. Nothing. Victoria's fiancé, Lord Pemberton, had been watching the entire scene from a corner, apparently too terrified to speak. Now he stepped forward. Victoria, perhaps we should— Shut up, Charles, she snapped. Then to me, you always were smarter than anyone gave you credit for, playing the victim while plotting this all along. I didn't plot anything, I said honestly. I fell in love with a man who happened to be more than he seemed, just like you fell in love with Charles's title and money rather than Charles himself. That hit home. Victoria's jaw clenched, but she nodded slowly. Fine, you win. Take it all, but don't expect me to grovel. Victoria, our mother cried. You can't just give in to this pirate's demands. Can't I? Victoria rounded on her. Look around, Mother. We're surrounded by armed pirates. There's a ship ready to destroy our fleet. We have documentation that could land us all in prison. And the Pirate King himself is standing in our ballroom because we couldn't resist mocking his wooden leg. So, yes, I absolutely can give in. At least if Alara is in charge, I might salvage something from this disaster. That left our parents. My father, the man who'd told me I was worthless so many times I'd believed it. My mother, who'd made it clear from birth that I was a disappointment, a burden, unwanted and unloved. You ungrateful little witch, my mother spat at me. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing, I shouted, surprising everyone, including myself with the force of my anger. You gave Victoria everything. The best tutors, the finest clothes, the opportunities, the love. I got hand-me-downs and insults. I got told to be grateful for scraps while watching Victoria feast. And I was grateful. I said thank you for every crumb, hoping that maybe if I was good enough, quiet enough, small enough, you might love me too. I was crying now, but I didn't care. Do you know what Marcus gave me? Not gold or jewels or power. He gave me the knowledge that I was worth loving exactly as I am. He gave me kindness without conditions. He gave me a place where I belonged. That's why I love him. Not because he's the Pirate King, but because he's the first person who ever made me feel like I deserved to exist. Marcus squeezed my hand and I drew strength from his touch. So, yes, Mother, Father, I'm going to take everything. Not because I'm ungrateful, but because I've finally learned that I deserve better than what you gave me. And if you want to remain part of this family, you'll accept that. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. The powerful businessman who'd ruled our family with an iron fist was revealed as what he'd always been. A bully who crumbled when faced with someone stronger. What would we have to do? He asked quietly. Apologize, I said, publicly. Announce to everyone at this party, all your friends and business associates, that you've mistreated me for years and are transferring control of the family holdings to me. Then you'll live according to my rules. No more cruelty, no more favoritism. You'll treat everyone, from the servants to dock workers, with respect, or you'll find yourselves cut off without a penny. The shame, my mother began, is nothing compared to what you put me through, I finished. You have 40 minutes left to decide. The next 30 minutes were the longest of my life. My family huddled together, arguing in harsh whispers, while Marcus's crew watched them like hawks. Marcus never let go of my hand, occasionally lifting it to his lips to place gentle kisses on my knuckles. A gesture so at odds with the dangerous Pirate King persona that it made my heart flutter. Are you all right? He murmured in my ear. I don't know, I admitted. I never thought I'd have this chance. Part of me wants to forgive them, to try to build something better, but another part, Wants them to suffer as you've suffered? I nodded, ashamed of the darkness in my heart. That's human, my love. The fact that you're offering them any choice at all shows your heart is kinder than mine. I would have simply taken everything and left them with nothing. Is that what happened to the person who betrayed you? The reason you lost your leg? His expression darkened. He wasn't given a choice. He made his decision when he sold my location to the Navy for gold. Last I heard, he was begging in the streets of Nassau, missing more than just a leg. Before I could respond, my father stepped forward. We've decided. The entire room held its breath. We accept your terms, he said, the words clearly costing him. We will make the announcement, transfer the holdings, and live according to your rules. I studied his face, looking for deception, but found only defeat. All of you? All of us, my mother confirmed, though she looked like she'd swallowed poison. Marcus nodded to his crew. Bring in the witnesses. The ballroom doors opened, and several well-dressed individuals entered. Lawyers, I realized, and a notary. These documents have already been prepared, Marcus explained as they set up at a table. All that's required are signatures and the public announcement. The legal transfer was swift and efficient. Within 20 minutes, I had gone from the disinherited daughter to the head of the Ashford family with complete control over all holdings, properties, and accounts. My hands shook as I signed my name, making it official. Now, Marcus said, the announcement. My father called for everyone's attention. The guests who had been held in the other room by Marcus's crew were allowed back in. They entered nervously, clearly aware something significant had happened, but not sure what. Ladies and gentlemen, my father began, his voice steady despite his humiliation, I have an announcement to make. For years, my wife and I have failed in our most fundamental duty as parents. We have mistreated, neglected, and abused our eldest daughter, Alara. We have been cruel, unjust, and unforgivably wrong. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria stood stiff as a board, her face a mask, while James openly wept. Effective immediately, my father continued, I am transferring all control of the Ashford family holdings to Alara. She will be the head of our family, and we will abide by her decisions in all matters. Furthermore, my mother added, though each word seemed to pain her, we apologize, not just to Alara, but to everyone here who witnessed our cruelty over the years and said nothing. We created an environment where abuse was normalized, and that ends tonight. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, Lord Pemberton began to clap. Others joined him until the entire room was applauding, not for my parents' confession, but for me. Marcus raised our joined hands and kissed mine again. May I? He asked quietly. I nodded, curious what he planned. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice carrying easily through the room. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Marcus Thorne, known in certain circles as the Pirate King. And this remarkable woman is my wife, your new business partner, and the only person in this room who earned their position through kindness rather than cruelty. The revelation sent another shockwave through the crowd. Several people stepped back, fear evident on their faces. You have nothing to fear from me or my crew, Marcus continued. We're here only to ensure justice for my wife. Those who treat her with the respect she deserves will find themselves under the protection of the pirate fleet. Those who don't, he smiled that dangerous smile again. Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Lord Pemberton stepped forward, surprising everyone. Lady Alara, he said, bowing formally, I owe you an apology as well. I stood by while your family mistreated you, more concerned with my engagement to Victoria than with basic human decency. If you'll permit it, I would like to be among the first to conduct business with you under this new arrangement. And what of your engagement to my sister? I asked. He glanced at Victoria, who stood rigid with humiliation. That depends entirely on whether Victoria can become the kind of person worthy of being your sister. Real growth, not just play acting for advantage. It was a challenge, and Victoria knew it. For the first time in her life, she would have to earn something rather than have it handed to her. The rest of the evening was surreal. Business associates approached me with proposals and apologies. Marcus's crew mingled with the guests, telling stories that made it clear just how powerful and far-reaching the Pirate King's influence was. And through it all, Marcus stayed by my side, his presence a reminder that I was no longer alone. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, each stopping to pay their respects to me, something that had never happened before, my family stood awkwardly in the corner, unsure of their place in this new dynamic. I approached them, Marcus a steady presence beside me. "Tomorrow, we'll discuss the specifics of our new arrangement," I said. "But tonight, I want you to think about what kind of people you want to be. Because I'm not interested in ruling over prisoners. I want a family, a real one, built on respect and genuine affection. Whether you can be part of that is up to you." "Alara," Victoria said quietly, "for what it's worth, you look happy. Happier than I've ever seen you." "I am happy," I confirmed. Marcus showed me what it feels like to be valued. "Must be nice," she said, and for the first time, I heard genuine envy in her voice. Not for material things, but for the love she could see between Marcus and me. "It can be," I told her, "but you have to be willing to give it as well as receive it. Real love, real respect. It's not a transaction. It's a choice you make every day." As we prepared to leave, Marcus whispered in my ear, "You know we don't have to stay here. My ship is ready. We could sail away tonight, see the world, leave all this behind." I considered it. The freedom of the sea, adventures in distant ports, a life unencumbered by the weight of family and business. It was tempting. "Maybe someday," I said, "but not yet. I want to see if something good can be built from these ashes. I want to use this power to help people the way no one helped me. And I want to prove that kindness isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength of all." He smiled, the gentle smile I'd fallen in love with. "Then we stay, and I'll support you every step of the way. Though I should warn you, my crew gets restless if they're landlocked too long." "Then we'll have to find ways to keep them entertained," I said. "Perhaps some of our shipping routes could use more aggressive protection." "Now you're thinking like a pirate queen," he laughed. As we walked through the grand doors of my childhood home, doors I'd been thrown out of so many times, I realized that everything had changed in the span of a few hours. The girl who'd arrived at this party hoping for crumbs of acceptance was leaving as the head of the family, wife to the most powerful pirate in history, and finally, free. But freedom, I was learning, wasn't just about breaking chains. It was about choosing what to do once they were broken. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching the somber mood in the Ashford Manor. I sat at the head of the dining table, a place I'd never been allowed before, reviewing financial documents while Marcus stood by the window, watching the harbor where his ship remained anchored. My family filed in one by one, looking haggard and uncertain. They took their seats quietly, waiting for me to speak. Even Victoria, usually immaculate at any hour, looked disheveled. "I've been reviewing our holdings," I began without preamble. "It seems Father Dear made some rather poor investments recently. We're not bankrupt, but we're closer than you'd probably like." "The Pemberton deal would have solved that," my father said quietly. "You mean selling Victoria to the highest bidder would have solved that?" I corrected. "Just like you tried to sell me to Harrison Blackwood before I refused." My mother flinched at the mention of that particular incident, the son of their business partner who'd cornered me in the library during a dinner party, whose wandering hands had made me flee to my room in tears, only to be told by my parents that I should have been flattered by the attention. "That's not going to happen anymore," I continued. "Victoria, your engagement to Lord Pemberton is dissolved unless you both choose to continue it of your own free will without any financial incentive." "But the merger," my father started. "Will happen anyway," I said. "I spoke with Pemberton this morning. He's willing to do business with us based on merit, not marriage alliances. Novel concept, I know." "This morning?" Victoria asked, surprised. "When?" 5 a.m. He was at the docks, actually, negotiating with Marcus's quartermaster for protection for his merchant fleet. Turns out he's been losing ships to pirates for years. Pirates who will now leave him alone in exchange for a very reasonable fee. Marcus smiled slightly. "The protection business is quite lucrative when done properly." "You're turning us into a criminal enterprise," my mother accused. No more than we already were, I replied, setting down a ledger. Would you like me to read the list of competitors father had removed from the equation over the years? Or perhaps the customs officials he bribed, the safety inspectors he paid to overlook violations that led to 3 worker deaths? Silence greeted this revelation. The difference, I continued, is that now we're honest about it, and we're going to make amends. James, you're going to oversee the establishment of a fund for the families of those workers. Proper compensation, education for their children, whatever they need. James nodded eagerly. Of course, what else can I do? His enthusiasm surprised me, but it seemed genuine. You always were good with numbers. You'll be my chief financial officer, but you'll report to me daily. No decisions without my approval until you've proven yourself trustworthy. And us? My father asked, gesturing to himself and my mother. You'll be advisors. Your knowledge of the business is valuable, but you'll have no actual power. Think of it as an early retirement with the condition that you remain useful. And me? Victoria asked, chin raised despite her circumstances. I studied my sister for a long moment. What do you want, Victoria? For once in your life, what do you actually want? She seemed taken aback by the question. I don't know. Then figure it out. In the meantime, you'll run our charitable foundation. We don't have a charitable foundation. We do now. £50,000 a year to start. You'll identify families in situations like mine was, overlooked, abused, discarded, and you'll help them. Consider it penance. You're mocking me, she said stiffly. No, I'm giving you a chance to be more than a pretty face with a cruel tongue. Whether you take it is up to you. A knock at the door interrupted us. One of Marcus's crew entered, the young woman with green eyes from the night before. Captain, she addressed Marcus, we have a situation. Marcus straightened. What kind of situation? The Serpent's Wake has been spotted 3 miles out, flying diplomatic colors. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Marcus's entire demeanor changed, becoming something cold and deadly. Who or what is the Serpent's Wake? I asked. Admiral Nathaniel Cross, Marcus said, his voice tight. The man who took my leg, the one who betrayed me to the Navy for gold. He wouldn't dare come here, the crew member said. Not with the Revenge in harbor. Unless he knows something we don't, Marcus mused. Then, to me, my love, we need to... Another knock, more urgent this time. A different crew member entered, breathing hard. Royal Navy ships, Captain. 6 of them, approaching from the south. They'll be here within the hour. A trap, Marcus concluded. Cross is the bait, the Navy is the snare. They can't arrest you, I said, standing. You've been pardoned. The documents were forged, my father said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. He withered under our gaze, but continued. I knew they were forged. I helped arrange it, actually, 5 years ago. The pardon that allowed the Pirate King to disappear was my creation, part of our arrangement. But it won't hold up under scrutiny. I never thought... You never thought he'd actually surface again, Marcus finished. You never thought your discarded daughter would marry him. Can you run? James asked, and I was surprised to hear genuine concern in his voice. Marcus looked out the window at his ship. The Revenge could fight past them, but not without casualties. And not with Alara. It would put her at risk. I'm going with you, I said immediately. No, he said firmly. If they take you, they could use you against me. You're safer here, established as the head of a noble family. They wouldn't dare touch you without proof of wrongdoing. But they'll take you. Maybe, maybe not. He turned to his crew members. Signal the ship. Tell them to prepare for diplomatic engagement, not battle. And send word to the other captains in our fleet. If anything happens to me, the Ashford family is under their protection. Anyone who harms them will answer to the Brotherhood. Marcus, no, I pleaded. There has to be another way. He pulled me close, kissing my forehead. Trust me, love. I've survived worse than Admiral Cross and his schemes. Within minutes, the manor was buzzing with activity. Marcus's crew prepared defensive positions while maintaining an air of legitimate employment. My family, to their credit, fell in line without complaint, perhaps finally understanding the gravity of the situation. Admiral Cross arrived first, alone, walking up to the manor with a confidence that made my skin crawl. He was a tall man, gaunt, with eyes like a dead fish and a smile that never reached them. "Lord and Lady Ashford," he said, bowing mockingly, "I heard there's been a change in leadership. How interesting." "State your business, Admiral," I said, proud that my voice remained steady. "I'm here for Marcus Thorne, of course. I have a warrant for his arrest on charges of piracy, murder, and treason against the crown." "Those charges were pardoned," I said. "Were they?" Cross produced a document. "Because according to our investigation, that pardon was obtained through fraud, which makes it null and void." Marcus entered the room then, and Cross's smile became genuine for the first time. "Hello, Marcus. You're looking well for a dead man." "Nathaniel," Marcus replied evenly. "Still selling your soul for gold, I see." Says the pirate, "I never pretended to be anything else. You, on the other hand, wore the uniform of the Royal Navy while taking bribes from every smuggler in the Caribbean. At least until you found a bigger payday in betraying me." "Ancient history," Cross said dismissively. "What matters is the present, and presently you're under arrest." "On what evidence?" I demanded. Cross produced another document. A signed confession from someone who knows all about the Pirate King's recent activities. My blood went cold as I read the signature at the bottom. "Victoria." "No," my sister said, standing abruptly. "That's not, I didn't." "Oh, but you did," Cross said smoothly. "Last night, in fact. You were quite upset about your family's situation, weren't you? Ready to do anything to maintain your position? You signed it in exchange for my promise to restore your status once your sister and her husband were dealt with." "You lying bastard!" Victoria shouted. "You said you were from the Foreign Office. You said you were investigating irregularities in our shipping manifests." "Did I? How careless of me to mislead you." Cross's smile was poisonous. "But your signature is genuine, and that's all that matters." Marcus laughed then, a sound that made everyone except his crew step back. "Oh, Nathaniel, you always were too clever for your own good. Clever enough to catch you. Are you? Because from where I stand, you've just confessed to fraud, impersonation of a government official, and coercion in front of a room full of witnesses." Cross's smile faltered slightly. The word of pirates and their accomplices means nothing. "Perhaps not," Marcus agreed, "but the word of Lord Pemberton might carry more weight." The door opened, and Lord Pemberton entered, accompanied by several other nobles I recognized from the party. "We heard everything, Admiral. Your confession to deceiving Lady Victoria, obtaining her signature under false pretenses. Rather damning, wouldn't you say?" "You planned this," Cross accused Marcus. "I've had 5 years to plan for the day you'd come for me again," Marcus replied. "Did you really think I'd be unprepared?" "It doesn't matter," Cross spat. "The Navy ships will be here soon. You can't fight them all." "I don't intend to fight them," Marcus said. "Lord Pemberton, did you bring the documents I requested?" Pemberton handed over a leather portfolio. Marcus opened it and began reading aloud. A full confession from Admiral Nathaniel Cross detailing his involvement in piracy, smuggling, and treason, including his theft of Navy funds, his sale of military intelligence to foreign powers, and his murder of 3 superior officers who discovered his crimes. "That's fabricated," Cross shouted. "Is it? Your former quartermaster was quite thorough in his testimony before he died. Natural causes, of course. Old age catches up with us all. But he left behind these documents, along with proof of your crimes. Bank records, coded messages, even the location of the gold you've hidden." Cross went for his sword, but 3 of Marcus's crew had weapons pointed at him before he could draw it. "I wouldn't," Marcus advised. "You see, Nathaniel, the difference between us is that I've always been honest about what I am. You've spent so long lying that you've forgotten how to recognize the truth. These documents are real, your crimes are real, and unless you want them delivered to the Admiralty, you'll reconsider your current course of action." "What do you want?" Cross asked through gritted teeth. "Disappear, take one of your ships, and sail away. Never return to England, never come after me or my family again. In exchange, these documents remain private. The Navy will be told that you pursued a false lead, that the Pirate King is still dead, and Marcus Thorne is simply a reformed sailor who married into nobility. They'll believe it because they want to believe it. The Pirate King is more useful as a legend than as a prisoner. Cross looked around the room, calculating his odds. Finally, his shoulders slumped in defeat. You've won this round. I've won every round, Nathaniel. You just didn't know we were playing until now. Cross left without another word, and we watched from the windows as he boarded a boat back to his ship. Within an hour, the Navy vessels had withdrawn, following the Serpent's wake as it sailed away. Is it over? I asked Marcus. For now, he said, pulling me close. But men like Cross don't give up easily. He'll be back eventually. Then we'll be ready, I said firmly. All of us. I looked at my family as I said it, and surprisingly, they all nodded. Even my parents seemed to have accepted the new reality. That night, as Marcus and I stood on the balcony watching his ship in the harbor, I asked him, "Do you miss it? The freedom of the sea?" Sometimes, he admitted. But I've found something better, a home, a family, dysfunctional as it might be. And you. I never thanked you, I said, for what you did, for giving me the chance to confront them, to take control of my life. You don't need to thank me. Seeing you stand up to them, seeing you claim what was always rightfully yours, that was reward enough. Still, I want to do something for you. Anything. He was quiet for a moment, then said, There is one thing. My crew, my ship, they're my family too. I can't abandon them entirely. I wouldn't ask you to, what if we compromised? Split our time between land and sea? You could learn to sail, see the places I've seen, and we could use your new position to legitimize some of our operations. Turn pirates into privateers, criminals into commercial partners. A pirate queen and a noble lady all at once? I laughed. That would certainly be unique. You already are unique, he said, kissing me softly. That's why I love you. Over the following weeks, we settled into our new arrangement. My family, surprisingly, adapted to their reduced circumstances with more grace than I'd expected. James threw himself into the financial work, discovering he had a genuine talent for it when not overshadowed by our father's domineering presence. Victoria, after some initial resistance, began taking her charitable work seriously, perhaps recognizing parallels between the families she was helping and what I had endured. My parents were the slowest to change, but even they began to show signs of growth. My mother, stripped of her social power, had to confront who she was without it. My father, no longer the ultimate authority, seemed almost relieved to have the burden of control taken from him. The integration of Marcus's crew into our legitimate operations went smoother than expected. Many of them had skills beyond piracy, navigation, logistics, security, that translated well into commercial enterprises. We established a shipping company that guaranteed safe passage through pirate-infested waters, for a fee, of course. The irony that we were essentially paying ourselves for protection wasn't lost on anyone, but it was legal, technically. Lord Pemberton became a close ally and eventually a friend. His engagement to Victoria was officially ended, but I noticed them spending time together anyway, not as a business arrangement, but as two people genuinely getting to know each other for the first time. One evening, about 2 months after the confrontation, I found Victoria in the library, surrounded by paperwork for the foundation. Working late? I asked. She looked up, and for once there was no hostility in her expression. There's a family, the Wheelers. 5 children, father died in a factory accident, mother taking in washing to make ends meet. The eldest daughter, Sarah, she's brilliant. Reminds me of... She trailed off. Of who? Of you. How you used to be before we beat the hope out of you. She said it matter-of-factly, but I could see the shame in her eyes. I want to sponsor her education, all the way through university if she's capable. That's wonderful, Victoria. It doesn't make up for what I did to you. No, I agreed, but it's a start. She nodded, then surprised me by asking, How do you do it? How do you forgive us, even a little, after everything? I thought about it. I don't know if it's forgiveness exactly. More like choosing to move forward instead of staying trapped in the past. Marcus taught me that. He could have spent his life seeking revenge on everyone who'd wronged him. Instead, he chose to find happiness. That's what I'm trying to do, too. He really loves you, she said. I've never seen anyone look at someone the way he looks at you. I know. I was jealous, she admitted. Not of the power or the money, well, maybe a little, but mostly of that, of having someone who would stand with you against the world. You could have that too if you're willing to be vulnerable enough to let someone truly see you. She laughed bitterly. Who would want to see me? The cruel sister, the heartless daughter? Charles might, I suggested. He's been asking about you. After everything, he sees potential in you, the person you could be rather than who you've been. Isn't that what we all want? Someone who sees our best possible self and encourages us to become it? Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Alara, love, we have visitors. The visitors turned out to be three of Marcus's captains from his fleet, rough-looking men and women who commanded their own ships under his authority. They gathered in what had become our war room, the former study, to discuss business. The merchant guilds are complaining, Captain Rodriguez said, a woman with more scars than skin visible on her arms. They say our protection fees are too high. Then they can take their chances with the independents, Captain Chen replied. See how they like being boarded by pirates who don't follow the code? We need to be careful, Marcus said. We're walking a fine line between legitimate business and extortion. Alara, what do you think? They all turned to me, and I realized that they were genuinely interested in my opinion. These hardened pirates, who could probably kill me with their little fingers, were treating me as an equal. Lower the fees by 10%, I said, but offer premium services, faster routes, armed escorts for especially valuable cargo, insurance against losses. Make them feel like they're getting value, not just paying for safety. The lady has a mind for business, Captain Rodriguez approved. Though I still say a little fear keeps them honest. Fear is a tool, I agreed, but respect is better, and mutual profit is best of all. The meeting continued late into the night, discussing routes, territories, and the delicate balance of power we were maintaining. It was fascinating being part of this shadow world that existed alongside legitimate society. Later, as Marcus and I prepared for bed, he said, You're a natural at this. At what? Crime? He laughed. At leadership. The captains respect you. Your family is actually functioning, and you've managed to turn our protection racket into an almost respectable business. Almost respectable is still criminal, I pointed out. Everything's criminal to someone, he philosophized. The question is whether we're making the world better or worse. And are we? You tell me. Ships are safer. Families like the Wheelers are being helped. Your father's worst business practices have been reformed. Perfect? No. Better? I think so. I had to agree it wasn't the life I'd imagined as a child, but it was the life I'd chosen, and that made all the difference. A year passed, the Ashford Trading Company, under my leadership, had become one of the most successful enterprises in the country. We were also, secretly, the largest supporter of the Pirate Brotherhood, though our official stance was one of negotiation and compromise with the seafaring outlaws. I had learned to sail, spending months at sea with Marcus aboard the Revenge. I'd seen the sunset from 100 different ports, negotiated with merchants in 12 languages, and yes, even participated in a few raids on ships belonging to our competitors, though we always ensured no one was seriously hurt and that the crews were compensated for their trouble. My family had transformed as well. James had become my most trusted advisor. His head for numbers combined with a newfound moral compass, making him invaluable. Victoria's foundation had helped dozens of families, and her relationship with Charles had evolved into something genuine and loving. They were engaged again, but this time by choice rather than arrangement. Even my parents had found their place in the new order. My father, freed from the pressure of maintaining the family empire, had discovered a love of teaching and was instructing young merchants in ethical business practices, the irony of which wasn't lost on anyone. My mother had taken to hosting salons for artists and intellectuals, using her social skills for cultural enrichment rather than manipulation. It was at one of these salons that Admiral Cross reappeared. I saw him first, standing in the corner of our ballroom, wearing civilian clothes but unmistakable in his bearing. My hand went to the knife I'd learned to keep hidden in my bodice. Marcus had insisted on teaching me self-defense. Admiral, I said, approaching him carefully, you're violating our agreement. Our agreement? He smiled that cold smile. I had an agreement with your husband, not with you. Same thing. Is it? Because from what I hear, the Pirate King has gone soft, playing house, pretending to be legitimate. Some say he's lost his edge. Some say a lot of things. I have a proposition for you, Lady Ashford, one that doesn't involve your husband. I raised an eyebrow, curious despite myself. The Admiralty wants the pirate problem solved. Not suppressed, not negotiated with, solved. They're prepared to offer full pardons, legitimate letters of marque, even titles of nobility to any pirate who turns on their brothers. You're asking me to betray Marcus? I'm asking you to save him. This offer won't last forever. Soon the Navy will come in force, not 6 ships, but 60. Not one admiral, but a dozen. They'll burn every pirate haven, sink every ship, hang every crew member, unless someone provides them with an alternative solution. And you think I'm that someone? I think you're smart enough to see the writing on the wall. The age of piracy is ending. The question is whether it ends with a noose or a noble title. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared at my elbow. Nathaniel, you always did have terrible timing. Cross tensed, but Marcus made no aggressive moves. I heard your offer, Marcus said calmly. It's not without merit. Both Cross and I stared at him in surprise. You can't be serious, I said. Think about it, love. How many of our crews are tired of running? How many would take a pardon if it meant seeing their families again? We could negotiate, not surrender, a transformation. Pirates to privateers, outlaws to naval auxiliaries. They'd never honor it, Cross said, though he seemed intrigued. They would if the alternative was worse, Marcus replied. You said 60 ships? I can have 200 here in a month. Every pirate from here to the Indies. Want to test those odds? You're bluffing. Marcus smiled, and it was the dangerous smile that made brave men reconsider their choices. Would you like to find out? The negotiation that followed was the most complex of my life. It took weeks of back and forth, with Cross serving as intermediary between us and the Admiralty. The final agreement was this. Any pirate who wished it could take a pardon and a letter of marque, becoming a legal privateer in service to the Crown. They would keep their ships, their crews, and a portion of their wealth. In exchange, they would patrol British waters, fight the nation's enemies, and cease all attacks on British vessels. Marcus would receive a full pardon and a title, Lord Marcus Thorne, Duke of the newly created Duchy of Seahaven. I would retain my position as head of the Ashford family, and together, we would oversee the transition from piracy to privateering. Not everyone agreed, of course. Some captains chose to remain outlaws, sailing for waters beyond British control, but many, especially those with families, took the deal. The ceremony was held at the very manor where my family had mocked Marcus's wooden leg just 18 months earlier. The same people who had laughed at him now bowed as he was made a duke. The irony was delicious. How does it feel, I asked him that night, to be legitimate? Strange, he admitted, but not unwelcome. I've been running for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have a home I didn't have to leave. Do you regret it? Do you? I thought about everything that had happened since that night when they'd laughed at his wooden leg. The transformation of my family, the empire we'd built, the lives we'd changed. No, not a single moment. Then neither do I. 5 years have passed since that night. 5 years since I discovered my husband was the Pirate King. 5 years since I took control of my family's fortune and my own fate. The Ashford Thorne trading empire is now the largest in the British Empire. Our fleet of former pirate ships, now legitimate privateers, keeps the seas safer than they've ever been. My sister Victoria runs the largest charitable organization in the country, and her marriage to Charles is genuinely happy. James has started his own investment firm, ethical and successful in equal measure. Even my parents, now in their twilight years, seem content with their place as advisors and grandparents to the 7 children Marcus and I have adopted from various ports. Orphans who needed a family as much as we needed them. Marcus still walks with his wooden leg, still carries his cane with the carved symbols of his victories. But no one laughs now. They know better. They know that the man with the wooden leg is the legendary Pirate King, that his wife is the woman who tamed the seas through commerce and compassion, that together we've created something unprecedented, a bridge between 2 worlds that were never meant to meet. Sometimes, on quiet nights, we take one of our ships and sail out beyond the harbor. Just the 2 of us, like it was in the beginning. We stand on the deck, watching the stars reflect on the water, and Marcus tells me stories of his adventures before we met. I tell him about the dreams I had as a child, dreams I thought would never come true. Do you ever miss it? I ask him sometimes. The complete freedom? The adventure? This is an adventure, he always replies, just a different kind. He's right. Building a life, a family, a legacy, it's the greatest adventure of all. And it all started that night when they laughed at my husband's wooden leg, never knowing they were mocking a king. The truth is, I might never have found my strength if my family hadn't pushed me to my breaking point. I might never have stood up to them if Marcus hadn't shown me I was worth standing up for. And Marcus might never have revealed his identity if they hadn't insulted him so thoroughly that night. In a strange way, I'm grateful for their cruelty. It led me to Marcus, and Marcus led me to myself. Now, when young women come to me, and they do, in droves, seeking advice or assistance from the woman who married the pirate king and lived to tell about it, I tell them this: your worth is not determined by your family's treatment of you. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it, and sometimes the person who seems broken on the outside is the strongest on the inside. Sometimes they have wooden legs. Sometimes they have scarred hearts. Sometimes they have secrets that could change the world. But if you look past the surface, if you choose kindness, when the world chooses cruelty, you might find that the person everyone else discounts is exactly the person you need. Marcus likes to joke that he won the greatest treasure of his pirating career without firing a single shot. He married me. But the truth is, we saved each other. He gave me the courage to claim my birthright, and I gave him a reason to stop running. Together, we turned a family's mockery into an empire's foundation. And it all started with a laugh. A cruel, mocking laugh at a wooden leg that creaked when its owner walked. They stopped laughing when he was revealed as the Pirate King, but by then, it was far too late. The lesson, if there is one, is simple. Be careful who you mock. Be careful who you dismiss. The person you think is beneath you might just be the one who rises above you. And the wooden leg you laugh at might belong to a king. Our story isn't over, of course. There are still adventures to be had, challenges to face, children to raise, and an empire to run. Admiral Cross occasionally sends letters, half threat and half respect, keeping us on our toes. Other pirate captains sometimes challenge Marcus's authority, forgetting that the Pirate King's retirement is conditional, not complete. But we face it all together, Marcus and I, our chosen family, our reformed blood relatives, and our crew of former pirates turned respectable privateers. It's not the life either of us planned, but it's the life we chose, and that makes it perfect in its imperfection. Sometimes when we're hosting grand parties in the same ballroom where my humiliation began, I catch Marcus's eye across the room. He'll tap his wooden leg against the floor, making it creak deliberately, and we'll share a private smile, a reminder of where we started and how far we've come. The guests at these parties now include admirals and pirates, nobles and merchants, the powerful and the previously powerless. They all know our story, how the discarded daughter married the Pirate King, how mockery turned to respect, how cruelty was repaid with justice rather than vengeance. But what they don't know, what we keep to ourselves, is the simple truth at the heart of it all. Love is the greatest power in any ocean. It can calm storms, bridge worlds, and turn the laughter of mockers into the silence of awe. And that's how I, Ilara Ashford Thorne, went from being the family embarrassment to the wife of the Pirate King, from powerless to powerful, from mockery to majesty. All because they laughed at my husband's wooden leg, never knowing they were laughing at their own doom. The wooden leg still creaks when he walks. But now that sound doesn't bring laughter. It brings respect. Because everyone knows that the man with the creaking wooden leg is the one who united the pirates, who married for love instead of power, who chose redemption over revenge. And I'm the woman who loved him not despite his wooden leg, but because of everything it represented: survival, strength, and the ability to keep standing even when the world tries to cut you down. That's our story. A story of transformation, of justice, of love conquering cruelty. A story that began with laughter and ended with an empire. And the best part? It's all true. Every word, every moment, every creaking step. They laughed at my husband's wooden leg. They stopped when he was revealed as the infamous Pirate King. But by then, their laughter had already sealed their fate. And my fate? Well, it was sealed the moment I looked past the wooden leg and saw the man, the king, the love of my life. The end? No. This is just the beginning. Because when you're married to the Pirate King, when you've built an empire on the ashes of abuse, when you've turned mockery into majesty, every ending is just a new adventure waiting to begin. And I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings.